This one says, the ruins of the prehistoric Bolivian city of T feature green andesite stones weighing up to 40 pounds. Okay, so the ruins of this old city has these old stones. These stones were quarried at sea, which is across the lake and about 90 kilometers away. Okay, so these stones were quarried at this place, which is 90 kilometers away. Archaeologists hypothesize that the stones were brought to T on reed boats. Okay, so we think that they came from sea to T on reed boats. To show this was possible, experimenters transported a 9-ton stone from sea to T using reed boats built with locally available materials and techniques traditional to this area. All right, so is this an argument or a set of facts?
I want to say it's a set of facts.
Well, it has a hypothesis, so it can't be a set. It's the archaeologists are arguing for something, right?
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know if it was like, I knew that that's what they were saying. I didn't know if it was like someone's
Hypothesis.
reporting that they had this hypothesis.
Oh yeah. So if there's the hypothesis, oftentimes that's the conclusion. So it falls into the conclusion category. But and then even in the question, it's going to ask. It won't use the word conclusion. It will use the word hypothesize, which it says which of the following would be most useful to evaluate the support for the archaeologist hypothesis. So we'll treat it just like an argument.
Mm-hmm.
So why do the archaeologists think that the stones were brought to T on reed boats? Or what is the support for that?
Their support is that they've transported a 9-ton stone with a reed boat, basically.
With locally available materials
And
and techniques that were traditional to the area. All right, does this guarantee our hypothesis?
no, and what I was thinking when I first read it was a 9-ton stone is completely different than a 40-ton stone. Even though it says weighing up to 40 tons, like a 9-ton stone is just completely different than a 40-ton stone. So even if the 9-ton stones back then were transported, what if the 40-ton stones weren't?
Okay, and why else does this maybe not guarantee it?
I'm gonna say I don't know the time gap between this.
Yes. So when it says built with locally available materials and techniques traditional to this area, what kind of goes off in your head when you read that and you're like, I don't know.
That might not have been a thing back then. It was
Yeah,
prehistoric.
excellent. Yeah,
Which if it wasn't, then their evidence just completely falls apart.
yes. Okay. So when it comes to an evaluate question, we're looking for something that either could strengthen or weaken the conclusion. So if these available materials and techniques were available back in prehistoric times, would that strengthen our argument?
Yeah.
Yes. And if they weren't, it would weaken it. So how you want to approach these questions is come up with a random answer for each of these answers and ask yourself, if this were the answer, would it strengthen or weaken it? So A says whether the traditional techniques for building reed boats were in use at the time that T was inhibited. So if we said yes to this, would it strengthen or weaken our conclusion?
It would strengthen it. Yeah.
Yeah. And if we said no, would it strengthen or weaken it?
It would weaken it.
Yeah, so that's probably our answer, but let's try a different one so we can see how this technique works. Okay, so B says whether green A stones quarried at the time of T were used at any sites near C. So what if they were used at sites near C? Does that strengthen or weaken our conclusion?
I don't think it does anything to the
No.
conclusion.
Yeah, what does the fact that these were used at sites near sea have anything to do with these stones came across on reed boats?
Right.
So the answer to this question does nothing, so it's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
All right, what about C? Whether reed boats are commonly used today on the lake. So what if we said yes, they are commonly used today?
It doesn't do anything because they're trying to prove that they were used back then. So if they're being used today, cool. Cars are being used today.
Yes, I love that. Okay, and what about no? What if they're not being used today?
Cool. That
We just
doesn't
have better
help.
methods. Excellent. So it can't be that. D, whether the green A stones at T are the largest stones at the site. So what if they are the largest stones at the site?
I don't think that
Yeah,
that has
cool.
nothing.
They're the
Green
largest
votes.
stone.
Votes.
What if they're not the largest stones? There's this other stone that's larger. Cool. Doesn't matter. So that can't be our answer. And then E says whether the reed boat built for the experimenters is durable enough to remain usable for several years. What if yes, they're durable to use for several years?
That doesn't help if it was back then. Like, what about back then? Because that's
Yeah,
their whole
maybe they made new reed
process.
boats every week or every year. Who knows? So like, do you see how like the answer to question A would either it would could helps us evaluate it because the answer helps us strengthen or weaken our hypothesis. So
Yeah,
that's how you handle evaluate questions.
I've never